Hello and welcome to another episode of Team Anywhere. I'm Mitch Simon, your co-host on the West Coast. And on the East Coast, my lovely co-host, Dr. Virginia Bianco Mathis.
Jeez.
That is a long name. But today on the podcast, we have a gentleman on the West Coast. Actually, just a few miles up the coast from me. Today on the podcast, we have the New York Times bestselling author of The Lean Entrepreneur, Brant Cooper. Now, Brant releases his new book, Disruption Proof, on October 26th. So as we are recording this, that is just a few weeks away. And Disruption Proof will give readers a refreshing new approach to navigate pervasive uncertainty. When Brant isn't writing books, he's out helping leaders navigate the uncertainty brought on by increased complexity and endless disruption, which is kind of like every single day now. So welcome, Brant.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Mitch.
Good
Jenny,
to
thanks
see
for
you.
having me.
You are, yes. It's so great to have you. You can't see Brant, but he looks like he lives in San Diego because he's so relaxed. I know, it's just great. Oh, disruption, chaos, whatever. Have a fish taco. So, but I do have a serious question, Brant. What has been the most disruptive thing that you have experienced personally over the last year?
Well, I mean, to be honest, wow, it's a bigger question than I even thought. To be honest, in March, I was diagnosed with esophageal cancer.
Oh my God.
So
wow.
That came out of the blue, and it turned out that I wrote the book and spent all of COVID, obviously, also developing cancer, unbeknownst to myself, though I didn't feel great. And I actually thought it was the pandemic. I'm an introvert, but even me locked indoors, it was a tough year. But to answer your question, the most shocking thing then was in March to discover the discomfort that I was having was actually stage 3 cancer.
Oh my God. And?
Oh, well, so went through the chemo and the radiation, just actually had a endoscopy Friday. The tumor is gone, biopsy results pending, but oh my gosh. So happy to be able to report that it's completely obliterated. It's interesting. I don't know if we'll have time to dive into it, but I was being cared by Scripps when they got hit by the ransomware attack. Another example of disruption, and it was really pretty incredible.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that story. That is unbelievable. And is a reminder of, this total whole of our lives and how everything is connected.
Well, I think it's also, I'm going to admit straight up here that I am a very fortunate individual. I'm a privileged white male here in San Diego County, and it was interesting to navigate the healthcare system over a serious issue like this. And it's just quite apparent how much we have to advocate for ourselves in this healthcare system, which isn't to say, all of the people that I encountered, the nurses, the doctors, the front office people, all of them were absolutely great, amazing in dealing with the disruption of their hospital systems being down. So absolutely incredible experience from a people point of view. But navigating the system itself is very difficult. I'm fortunate I have a sister who's a cardiologist, so you have a doctor in the family.
Yes.
It's actually amazing. But I've also, gone out and read the research and became an advocate for myself and positively affected my care doing that. And that is just not available to everybody.
Yeah, unfortunately it isn't. That's why one of my kids is a doctor. So that when I get old, yeah. All right.
You planned that a long time ago.
That's correct. He did.
He's a doctor. So, what I'd like to know is, it's great that is solved. Why have you? There's a lot of things you could spend your whole life on. Why have you spent your whole career focused on disruption?
I don't know. That's a good question. I guess there's some people, I'm guessing you two have this mindset too, that you actually think it's a responsibility to improve things. And so I think, obviously, I think the country is great. I think capitalism is great. I think capitalism has proven that it's the best way to solve problems. But I also think it's pretty obvious that we can make things better. And so I think that, especially, I'm by no means wealthy, but somebody that grows up in my circumstances, I think that it's my duty and my purpose in life to create value for other people. And so that's, I don't know, maybe it's an ethos, built into me through my genes and my parents, but I think that we can create virtuous cycles if what we believe is our purpose is to improve, create value for other people. It creates a place that we all want to be in, a place we all want to live in. And I think actually a vast majority of people, I think that that's what they want, is to live meaningful lives.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Jeannie and I started this podcast because of the disruption that was occurring at the beginning of the pandemic. And what I want to know from your research is, why is virtual and hybrid causing so much challenge, that disruption? Why is it causing so much challenge for leaders to get a grip on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I would have to guess, it's because they're still using their 20th century industrial age mindset. And so they believe that they should know the answers. And so it's a centralized top-down decision-making process. And they sort of feel like it's their responsibility. And it just boggles my mind as well. And one of the things that I've been sort of ranting about this summer is, like, why not go develop empathy for your colleagues, for your workers, for your employees, for your teams? And that empathy doesn't mean that you establish policies that solve all of those or address all of what you learn. You still get to make the choices, but understanding the ramifications of your policies and understanding what the needs and desires and aspirations of your people will give you the opportunity to develop policies that make your employees more contented, and which has been proven over and over in studies that make them more productive. And so I think it's just a mindset challenge.
So what I'm hearing you say was kind of cool is okay. So leaders have been trained in a top-down methodology, pretty much a certainty-based methodology or mindset. So now what happens is, yes, there's been uncertainty before. Now we have massive uncertainty, and of course, what was really interesting for Ginny and I is that over the course of our work together for this year, is we thought again, because of our background, that okay, we're going from uncertainty to certainty. And yet what we found is we've gone from uncertainty to even more uncertainty. What would you tell a leader manager who has been trained in the world of certainty, that, hey, dude, get a life. You got to like let go of this whole certainty thing and come up with something different, because that seems really hard.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you all probably know better than I do how hard it is. My focus in my business and otherwise really hasn't been engaging with leaders and trying to teach them new skills. I do when I can, but it's really, my company's always been focused on the behavior at the ground level, the front lines, because I think that that's where transformation happens. It's really the behavior at the bottom of the pyramid. You need the top to say, yes, we're going to do that change, but the top-down change programs don't work. It needs to be behavior bottom up. And so I think it's leadership coaches, it's your job. But I mean, there's just so many great books out there. I'm a big fan of Brené Brown, Dare to Lead, and I there's a lot of a great teaching of executives now that they need to be more self-aware, more empathetic, more vulnerable. You like to say, right, showing up as your authentic self, and these type of things are super important. And so I think a lot of these leaders have that message. And I also think they believe that there's fundamental change going on. There's just too much turmoil in the world for people not to see that. I think the primary challenge is helping these people understand how to apply these new skills to their day-to-day work. And I think that's the big challenge. All of the workshops in the world doesn't necessarily get them over that hop of, okay, like here I've got my team, I've got to hit these numbers, I have to execute. How do I apply these new skills that I believe in? How do I apply them to this work? And I think that's the biggest challenge.
How do we?
So I'm hopeful that I have some ideas in the book.
Okay, let's talk about the book.
Yeah, well, there's so much uncertainty that what we want to do is go to the leaders themselves and say, what keeps you up at night? Where do you think the issues are? Where are the problems that you're facing, which they often keep bottled up? But you empower the teams to take a certain amount of time, and this is sort of what I would call one of my 5 E's. The teams take a certain amount of time of doing exploration work, is what I call it. And they're there to solve for those uncertainties. They're there to solve those needs that leaders are facing that are keeping them up at night. And this can drive near-term impact. So, I work with a lot of innovation groups, and I talk to innovation people all the time, and they're always complaining about the fact that leaders aren't bought in. And I'm thinking, yeah, leaders are not bought into funding the products that you want to develop that will reap some sort of benefit 5, 6, 7 years down the road. Well, why are they not bought into that? Because they're having trouble today. Right? And so take that mindset, that innovation mindset, and apply it to solving near-term issues. It's exploration work, so it requires the leaders to practice these new skills. They can't just manage exploration work. They have to mentor. They have to figure out different metrics, different ways to measure. They need to empower those people to go and develop empathy and run experiments and try to figure out how to solve these near-term problems. And I think that it allows the leaders to practice their new skills while it's allowing teams to practice their new skills. Hopefully it drives near-term impact and people sit back and go, wow, this stuff can actually work.
It seems that they have to change the formula around it's an A&D answer. This is an innovative idea. Great. Give me the short-term benefits and the long-term benefits.
I think
don't come out of the room until you do.
Right. Well, I think it's that empowerment part that, listen, I'm going to rely on you, team, to go figure out the solution. And I'm here to remove obstacles for you. I'm here to mentor you. Here's your mission. And here's your guidelines, the guardrails even. But it's sort of that empowering part that listen, we hire smart people. If you give smart people the authority to solve problems, they will solve problems. That's what smart people do. And that's what they want to do. And even that empowerment means that those employees are able to exercise their intelligence, their creativity, and they are more engaged. They will enjoy their job. They'll look forward to coming to work. And again, it's a way to start one of these virtuous cycles. So I think that the biggest hurdle for leaders to empowering their teams to go off and do these things is sort of this trust level, whether the teams can do that. Right. So again, before you start letting them go do anything willy-nilly, choose something that would have a near-term impact that's low risk, that can start demonstrating the ability of these teams to solve problems.
Yeah, it's so interesting, Brant, is that COVID forced everyone to go home. And of course, the very beginning was, well, can I really trust my employees? And now you have the gall to say, we have to really empower with a capital E, and you need to kind of give it away, and you need to trust. And it really goes back to, I'm sure all of us have worked with a lot of leaders who, as they move up in their role, they quote unquote don't do anything, right? They kind of see well, wait a minute, I used to do something. I used to get paid to do something. And now you're telling me I need to lead and not do anything. So I would love for you to address the work that you've done with leaders where you're really asking them to quote unquote walk away from their job, from their quote unquote their jobs. Their employees are not in the office, not in the building, maybe not even in the country. So how do you help people take the leap to really empower when they have not really done that before?
Well, I think what's interesting is that if you talk to those same leaders, what they'll sort of complain about is the amount of time that they have to take managing people, and that they are always fighting fires, and that they want to be strategic because that's actually how they're going to continue to move up, but they don't have the time to be strategic. Well, suddenly, if you are empowering your teams, so you're running a department or a division, you have to hit these numbers. So you have a mission to accomplish. So your responsibility is allocating the resources, assigning sort of these submissions to all of these different teams. And if they accomplish their missions, our group is going to accomplish our mission. So your responsibility suddenly is really more around allocating resources in order to meet the priorities that you've been given. So that's number one. Suddenly you're strategic. Mm-hmm. And then the second part is, and this is often ignored in large agile implementations, is that there's a completely new communications flow. If you're doing top-down centralized leader, then you have your megaphone, you're on top of the mountain, and you're sending directives down, right? It's one-way communications. But suddenly, if you're empowering these teams to go and solve problems, to gather insights on customers and other stakeholders, and to run experiments and produce data about behavior that you might be able to leverage, your responsibility suddenly is, okay, now I've got this information that's coming from below. I need to aggregate that. I need to make sure that it's still aligned with priorities. I need to now sort of manage up and tell people more senior to me where things look different than what the assumptions were before. So you're really taking a more, again, it's sort of a more dynamic way of managing the business, because you're taking the information in from where it's coming from the edge of the company, and you're actually then responsible for aggregating it, consolidating, and sending this message upwards as well as horizontally across the information or the organization, so that the company is able to adapt based upon changing conditions. And so I think it ends up being, rather than fighting fires and managing individuals, you're now responsible for, wow, I'm the one that has all of this data. I understand the context at my level in the organization, and I have a duty and a responsibility to affect the strategy of the business based upon what I know more than what those above me know. So I actually think it's exactly what those people want. So getting them to see that is a challenge, but I think it's exactly what they want. It's to become more strategic.
I think that many of them do. If they are truly already are thinking strategically, folks I find in a lot of our global companies and even our small entrepreneur companies do think in terms of innovation. I think what you described requires, however, for some, a whole new way of what being a leader is. Technically now, I have to aggregate, look for trends, be strategic, and tell stories.
It's all true.
Interpersonally, I have to be showing empathy, cheerleading, events, acknowledgement, etc. And I may be totally uncomfortable with both of those. So I either learn them, and the organization may help me do that, or I am just going to fade into the woodwork.
I actually agree with you. So the organizations that we've worked with that have gone furthest in this journey, the things that you see are leaders opting out, actually leaving the company because this isn't right for me. A way flatter organization, so fewer layers of middle management, and that means that people are gone. So I really do think, and I actually have a tough time advocating for changes that mean that people have to leave the company. There's the, it's not, that all actually happened back in the lean manufacturing days.
Yeah,
And there are some problems with that, but in the end, that's actually where your efficiency is going to come from, and you're actually going to be able to move faster. And people, they either sort of adapt or move on. I'm not sure that I think it happens one way or the other.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know what I wanted to I wanted to get through some of the E's. You have these one of like the E's, because he's talked about the right, Judy. Talked about the E's. We got to
yes, let's do it.
So I'd love for you to just share, Brant, some of the E's and how you actually have seen them implemented.
Right. Okay, so let's start. Empathy. So empathy, developing or a deep understanding of our customers, or applying it internally for our colleagues, and even people developing empathy for their leadership. So this is it's almost a corporate buzzword now. I mean, it's in I think Lexus ads, right? People talking about empathy. And so it's it's going out and understanding your customers. It doesn't mean doing what your customers say. It's understanding what they want, why they say what they say, what are their aspirations. And really the goal there is to develop insights, because I think more than intellectual property or technology innovation, your competitive advantage is knowing something about your customers that your competitors don't. So the second E is exploration. And exploration is, again, it kind of gets back to vulnerability. It's admitting what you don't know and then seeking to go and figure it out. So it requires a learning mindset. This is very natural to human beings. We're born with a learning mindset. We don't know how to walk and we don't know how to talk. And then suddenly by the time we're in our corporations, we're like, no, I know everything, believe me. So it's going out, running experiments, observing, and just out there. Listen, we need to maybe find experts that expertise that I don't have, and so again, it's a little bit of vulnerability there, but that's exploration. The other E is evidence. So now I'm going to use data and insights to inform my decisions. We don't want the data to make the decisions, right? That's where algorithms can run amok and cause, stock market collapses, or we sell diet pills to anorexics on Facebook. So we don't want the data to run us, but we need that to inform our decisions. And so oftentimes, even internally, the way you can overcome conflict with colleagues is to agree on experiments and agree on the data that we're going to look at, and let that data help us make the final call. It's way better than just sort of debating around a conference room table. So the fourth E is equilibrium. And so this applies to individuals' lives as well, establishing an equilibrium. But primarily it's finding this balance between the execution work we know we have to get done and this exploration work that I talk about. So there's a mythology, in my opinion, in the innovation industry, which is this ambidextrous system organization where 95% of your company is supposed to be in execution mode and 5% is in this exploration mode, and you're out trying to reinvent banking for 15 years from now. But, were companies actually in execution mode during COVID? No, they had to be in exploration mode again. And so it's wherever there's uncertainty, it's a continuum that exists across the organization. If you have a sales force that needs to go figure out a new sales script, that requires understanding customers and experimentation. In other words, it requires some amount of exploration.
I'm just going to interrupt you. I love that idea, because that's again, going back to the leadership that we're taught, which is, hierarchical. We definitely were taught you should spend 5 or 10% of your time on the future and 90% just put your head down. And I love that, as we're going to get to, how to become disruption proof. That's it. Because if you look at, you have to really look at how much uncertainty there is. And if there's a ton of, I'm sure you know this, but if there's a ton of uncertainty, then you just need to experiment a whole hell of a lot more.
It's the experiment that I love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that piece.
All right. I'm sorry for
Yeah.
disrupting you. Our
No,
last
that's fine. I think we can
Disrupt-
go anywhere with this.
Disrupt-
But let me just throw out the fifth E, because I think it's also really super important, not only in the times of COVID and disruptions, but just generally in the digital world.
Yeah.
And so the fifth E is ethics. And again, I think, just the vast majority of people that we've worked with in, global companies all around the world want to live and behave ethically, and they have their own personal morals and values. And yet people studies again have shown that we have this incredible ability to rationalize our behavior in any given moment if our behavior isn't sort of checked or there are guardrails around it. And I think that the opportunity in sort of this framework of empowering people is to include our values in the missions that we're giving teams and individuals. And so we need to go beyond our highfalutin value statements that exist on the website and get down to actually establishing what's the behavior that we expect, and establishing guardrails and making it part of our daily lives. And again, it's so easy in a digital world to automate this stuff so that we are, it goes beyond, but includes how we handle people's data. But it's just that, the way the systems respond to customers' behaviors can really send us down, I think, dangerous paths. And so I think that we need to build this into how we manage teams. And I think that sort of this agile that I always put in scare quotes is sort of a way to do that.
Scare quotes. Oh, wow. I never thought about that. We're learning a lot of stuff today, Jenny.
I know.
Okay. So your new book, Disruption Proof, releases on October 26, 2021. What does the term disruption proof mean?
So it's actually using these 5 E's, which I say is sort of the rad mindset. We're going to create a rad organization. Being here in San Diego, we want to create rad organizations, right?
Rad. That's totally rad.
So resilient, aware, and dynamic. And so what we need to do is build into our structure, into our systems, this ability to be like the palm tree that bends in the storm but doesn't break, right? So there's a flexibility there, but also an awesome strength. And the way to do this is by increasing our perception of the changes that are going on, both with our people internally, but also externally, and incorporating that new information. And then finally, the dynamic part is being able to change what we're doing based upon that new information, which seems like obvious, but it's so difficult. And I believe that the very structure of our organizations, which again, to me is just an extension of the assembly line, it's an industrial age structure, is what prevents us from having this ability to change what we're doing, right? So we grow up all of these departments based upon a functional expertise, and we're executing what we know to be true, and suddenly we create rules of engagement. So the departments are only allowed to talk to each other if they follow these specific rules. We need something from a different department. It just gets laid out onto a calendar based upon resources. And so it's just, Nokia has a 5-year plan in the year 2005 for their flip phones they're going to manufacture for the next 5 years. The iPhone comes out in 2007 and takes over the world in 2008. 2009, Nokia is still executing their 5-year plan, right? So we need.
I worked at Nokia.
I did not know that.
Hey, it hurt, okay, Brant? It really hurt.
Well, tell me, am I right? So
you're totally right. You're totally right. Yeah.
Yeah. So So I think it's the very structure that causes this. And eventually it's sort of the last stage, the endure stage in my book, Disruption Proof, is that maybe we allow the structure of the company to change in order that this rad behavior, this rad mindset, the 5 E's becomes a more natural way of working, as opposed to we kind of have to force it right now, right? I mean, it's a couple of your questions already have been around like, wow, this is really hard. How do we make it happen? And it's because we're sort of forcing, a square peg into a round hole right now. And eventually we need to get the square hole. So, and organizations have done this. A lot of the big tech companies that everybody wants to emulate. And again, in my view, there's some antitrust and some ethical problems there. But in terms of the way they structure and operate, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Spotify, it's really their speed, their agility, what they're able to do is what other companies want to emulate. And their structure is different. They're not all just broken down into these silos. And so I think that we're going to see that. ING is the first really large organization that I know that completely restructured their organization to more model that more dynamic structure.
Great. Well, we'll have to check into ING. Two last questions. So, what are the first steps anyone can take to become more disruption proof, starting today or starting tomorrow?
Yeah. So I think I think companies could actually run an impactathon, what I call an impactathon, this weekend if they wanted to. It's really
you get a bunch of impacas or no.
So impactathon is this horrible mashed word of impact and hackathon. So most people are familiar with hackathons where you pull all these teams together and they build stuff for a couple of days. What I want them to do is get these teams together, and what they do is practice those 5 E's over the weekend in service to those challenges that leaders have. And so I think that there's a bunch of positives that come out of that. Number one is you find out that you indeed actually have the skill set already in your business. Number two, you drive some near-term impact. You have the teams practicing this new behavior and the leaders practicing their new behaviors. And that's the sort of thing that epiphany that we can actually do this here gets the ball rolling. And so I really think it doesn't have to be as, as formal as an impactathon, but I think that any leader out there right now could empower a team to help them take out what their obstacles are as a leader and demonstrate the same sort of abilities inside the organization. We often get into planning mode, right? We want to dot all the I's and cross all the T's before we get started. And the first entrepreneurial thing we can do is just go get started. And then we can take the next step of, okay, now we see what works. Let's double down on that and let's put some structure around the program itself.
Yeah, it seems like a lot more time of just play, experimentation, check things out, question your questions. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so
just like the old Tinker Toy experiment,
the
marshmallow, right? And kids are the ones who have the better models because it fell down. Okay, now what do we do? All right, that fell.
Right.
And CEOs do the worst. Everything has to be perfect.
Yeah. All right. So, Brant, I'm going to ask you, how can people find you? I know that I probably have to just get in my car and you're probably 3 miles down the road.
You can find me at Swami's, Mitch. What's the problem?
Swami's, really? All right. It's for those San Diegans. The rest of you what is Swami's?
You're right.
For the rest of us who aren't in San Diego, where can we find you?
Right. So, I'm Brant Cooper on all social media. My website, brantcooper.com. People can email me, brant@brantcooper.com. I will respond to all emails. I love the conversations around this stuff. We have a conference coming up. That's at endlessdisruption.com. And, I really encourage people to reach out. Again, I think that this is we're having the right conversations. We need to start moving.
Wow. So Ginny, not disruption, but endless disruption.
Oh,
it's when does the conference end? It doesn't. All right. With that, thank you all so much. Thanks for our listeners. Thank you, Brant. Thank you, Dr. Virginia Bianco Mathis.
You're going to have to stop that.
If you loved this podcast, which I always do, please share this with your friends, your colleagues, your German Shepherd, and give us some stars. Give us 5, in fact. But definitely want to get the word out there. The podcast is growing really fast every month over month because we have such great speakers and authors like Brant. So next time we'll see you then. Until then, have a great time. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.